The consultation room at Longview Memorial Hospital smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Sheyla Rodriguez sat in the same chair where she had delivered thousands of death sentences, her hands trembling as they gripped the armrests. But today, she wasn't the psychologist. She wasn't the calm, collected professional who never shed a tear. Today, she was the mother waiting to hear if her newborn son would live or die. Across from her sat Dr. Patricia Harmon, her colleague, her friend, the woman who had watched Sheyla destroy families with clinical precision for over a decade. Patricia's eyes were red. That's when Sheyla knew. When the doctor delivering bad news can't stop crying, the news is worse than death. If this story grabs your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more incredible journeys of survival and transformation. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Now, let's dive into Sheyla's story. They called her the Ice Queen. Not to her face, of course. The nurses at Longview Memorial Hospital whispered it in break rooms, and families probably thought it after she left their loved ones sobbing in consultation rooms. Sheyla Rodriguez had earned that title over 12 years as the hospital's clinical psychologist, the professional designated to deliver the news no one else wanted to give. Terminal diagnoses, failed treatments, hours left, not days. At 39, Sheyla had perfected the art of compassion without attachment. She could sit across from parents learning their child had weeks to live and maintain eye contact without flinching. She could explain what comfort care meant without her voice cracking. In 12 years, she had delivered bad news to over 2,000 families. If she felt every ounce of their pain, she would have drowned in it years ago. Her husband Matthew understood, or at least he tried to. Matthew Chen, 42, a civil engineer who built bridges made of concrete and mathematics, married to a woman who built walls made of necessity. They had been together for 8 years, their relationship stable and comfortable. They talked about having children someday, but someday kept getting pushed further into the future. But there was one case that haunted her. 6 months before everything changed, Sheyla met Emma and Robert Gallagher. Their 2-year-old daughter Violet had been diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor, glioblastoma, aggressive, fatal. Sheyla's job was to help the Gallaghers understand what those final months would look like. She delivered the information in consultation room 3B with her usual professional distance: decline in motor function, increased seizures, pain management protocols, hospice recommendations. Emma Gallagher exploded. She stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. "How can you just sit there?" Emma's voice cracked like breaking glass. "How can you talk about my baby dying like you're reading a grocery list? Don't you have children? Don't you understand what you're asking us to accept?" Sheyla responded the way she had been trained. "Mrs. Gallagher, I understand this is devastating. I know these aren't the words you wanted to hear, but my role is to help you navigate what comes next." Robert Gallagher looked at her with disgust mixed with pity. "You don't understand anything," he said quietly. "You couldn't. If you did, you wouldn't be able to sit there with that expression on your face." That night, Matthew rolled over in bed and studied her face in the darkness. "You're somewhere else." "What happened today?" "Just work," Sheyla replied. "Nothing I haven't handled 1,000 times before." Matthew was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes I wonder if you've forgotten how to feel. I know you need those walls for your job, but I worry that one day you won't be able to take them down, even when you want to." 3 months later, Sheyla stared at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. She was 39 years old. She and Matthew had stopped actively trying years ago, accepting that parenthood might not be in their cards. But here it was, unexpected, impossible, beautiful. Matthew cried when she told him. Real tears of joy. He picked her up and spun her around their kitchen, laughing like a kid on Christmas morning. He called his parents in Taiwan at 3 a.m. their time because he couldn't wait. Something shifted in Sheyla during those 9 months. The walls she had built so carefully began to crumble. At work, she found herself crying during difficult conversations. The first time it happened, she excused herself, confused by her own reaction. Patricia Harmon found her in the bathroom. "You're human." Patricia said gently. You're allowed to feel things, Sheyla. Maybe the pregnancy is helping you remember that. They painted the nursery sage green. They chose the name Lucas Matthew Chen. Sheyla would rest her hand on her growing belly and feel Lucas kick, and for the first time in 12 years, she felt whole. Her colleagues joked she'd be the most psychologically prepared parent in Texas, but life has a vicious sense of humor. Lucas Matthew Chen was born on September 14th after 16 hours of labor, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect fingers, perfect toes, perfect face. When the nurse placed him on Sheyla's chest, she felt a love so overwhelming it physically hurt. Matthew stood beside the hospital bed with tears streaming down his face. He looks like you, Matthew whispered. He's perfect. For 4 hours, Lucas was perfect. The grandparents video called. Sheyla attempted breastfeeding. Matthew took hundreds of photos. But Sheyla noticed things. Lucas was too sleepy. He wouldn't latch properly. His breathing seemed labored. By hour 6, Lucas's lips had a bluish tint. The neonatologist, Dr. Benjamin Torres, arrived within minutes. His face grew more concerned with each second. He ordered an immediate transfer to the NICU. What's wrong? Matthew's voice was panicked. Dr. Torres looked at Sheyla with the look. The expression she had seen on doctors' faces thousands of times before delivering devastating news. We need to run some tests. Lucas's oxygen saturation is low. They took Lucas away. Matthew and Sheyla held each other in silence. The next 18 hours were torture. MRI, echocardiogram, genetic panels, blood work, specialists consulting with other specialists. At 11 o'clock the following morning, a nurse appeared. Dr. Torres and Dr. Harmon would like to meet with you both. Consultation room 3B. Sheyla's stomach dropped. Room 3B. Her room. The room where she had delivered death sentences for 12 years. She knew what happened in room 3B. When they arrived, Dr. Torres and Patricia were waiting. Patricia's eyes were already red. That's when Sheyla knew. Lucas has a congenital heart defect called Hypoplastic Left Heart Syndrome, Dr. Torres began. HLHS. The left side of his heart is severely underdeveloped. His heart cannot pump blood to his body effectively. Matthew made a sound like he'd been punched. Can you fix it? Patricia spoke, her voice thick with emotion. There is a surgical pathway. 3 operations over the first 3 years of life. Each surgery reconstructs how blood flows through his body. But, Sheyla heard herself ask, but without surgery, Lucas will not survive more than a few days, Dr. Torres said. With surgery, approximately 60 to 70% of children survive through all 3 surgeries. Each operation carries significant risk. Patricia was fully crying now. Sheyla, I'm so sorry. We have the best pediatric cardiac team in Texas. But I won't lie to you about the road ahead. It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever faced. Sheyla stared at the tissue box. The same tissue box she had pushed across this table to Emma Gallagher. Now it was being offered to her, and she understood. She finally understood what Emma had screamed at her. Matthew collapsed forward, sobbing. No, 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 not our baby. Please, not our baby. Patricia took Sheyla's hand. Do you understand what I've told you? I understand, Sheyla whispered. I've said those exact words to mothers. I've watched their faces break just like mine is breaking right now. Lucas's first surgery was scheduled for 5 days after his birth, the Norwood procedure. 8 hours of open-heart surgery. Dr. Vincent Kowalski, the surgeon, met with them beforehand. He was 56, with silver hair and steady hands. The Norwood is the most dangerous of the 3 surgeries, Dr. Kowalski explained. But I've done this procedure 547 times. Lucas is in the best hands possible. The night before surgery, they held Lucas for 2 hours. Sheyla sang Spanish lullabies her grandmother had taught her. Matthew sat beside her, one hand on Lucas's head, tears falling silently. At 5 o'clock the next morning, they wheeled Lucas away. Sheyla watched her 5-day-old son disappear through the double doors, and something inside her shattered. 12 years of suppressed grief came pouring out in the surgical waiting room. Her colleagues came by in waves, Patricia brought coffee. Dr. Torres checked in every 2 hours. It was excruciating. She had been the strong one. Now she was the one falling apart. 10 hours passed. At 3:47 p.m., Dr. Kowalski emerged. He made it through. It was complicated. His heart is more damaged than the imaging showed. But he survived. The next 72 hours are critical. The pediatric cardiac ICU was overwhelming. Lucas was connected to a breathing tube, feeding tube, chest tubes, IV lines, monitors tracking every heartbeat. He looked more machine than baby. Sheyla refused to leave. She sat beside Lucas's incubator, her hand resting on his foot. At 3 o'clock in the morning on the second night, alone except for the night shift nurses, 12 years of suppressed emotion finally broke through completely. She sobbed. Every mother she had ever delivered bad news to, every father she had watched crumble, all of them flooded her consciousness. She saw Emma Gallagher's face, contorted with rage and pain. "I understand now," Sheyla whispered. "I understand everything. And I'm so sorry." But understanding didn't save Lucas. At 2 weeks old, he developed an infection requiring additional surgery. At 6 weeks, his oxygen levels began dropping. Emergency intervention was discussed. They were trapped between impossible choices. The other NICU parents became Sheyla's lifeline. Rachel Pemberton, whose premature twins were fighting. James Kofi, whose daughter Amara had a genetic heart disorder. Teresa Washington, whose son had been in the NICU for 4 months. They formed an accidental family, bound by watching their children fight for life. They shared snacks at 2 in the morning. They cried together when alarms went off. They celebrated microscopic victories. They held each other when babies died. Sheyla listened to their stories with depth she had never given families before. She shared her own truth. "I delivered bad news to families for 12 years without crying. Not once. I thought compassion without attachment was professional. But it was just cowardice. Now I'm paying for it." Rachel touched her arm. "You're not paying for anything. But maybe this is teaching you something you couldn't learn any other way." At night, Sheyla wrote letters to families she remembered, apologizing for her coldness, pouring out guilt and belated understanding. She never sent them, but writing helped her process the transformation happening inside her chest. At 10 weeks post-surgery, Dr. Torres delivered cautiously optimistic news. Lucas was stable. His oxygen levels had improved. He was beating the odds. But the real turning point came on a Thursday afternoon. A volunteer appeared at the NICU entrance. Sheyla glanced up, then looked again. Emma Gallagher stood there wearing a volunteer badge, carrying donated books. Sheyla's heart stopped. Emma turned, saw Sheyla, and froze. Then Emma walked slowly toward Lucas's station. "Hi," Emma said softly. "Hi," Sheyla whispered back. "Someone told me you were here with your son," Emma said. "I volunteer in the NICU now. After Violet died, I needed to help other parents going through what we went through." "Violet died?" Sheyla felt tears streaming. 3 months ago. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I was cold, I was cruel, I didn't understand, and I should have." Emma looked at Lucas. "You didn't know. How could you? But now you have. And that matters." They moved to the family lounge. Sheyla told her everything. The diagnosis, the surgery, the infection, the constant fear, the guilt. Emma listened without judgment. Then she pulled out a blue crocheted blanket. "I made this for Lucas. Every stitch is a prayer." Sheyla broke down completely. "I don't deserve your kindness." "Pain can do 2 things," Emma said quietly. "It can harden us or break us open. Violet's death broke me open. You're being broken open too, Sheyla. And I think you're choosing transformation. You're going to take this pain and help so many people." Lucas came home at 4 months old, tiny, fragile, requiring constant monitoring, but alive. At 6 months, he underwent his second surgery, the Glenn procedure. He recovered faster this time. He was a fighter. 15 months after Lucas's birth, Sheyla returned to work. The hospital had revised their difficult conversation protocols, providing families more time and support. Her first day back, she was assigned to meet with the Morrison family. Their 8-year-old son Tyler had been diagnosed with leukemia 2 years earlier. He had achieved remission, But 3 weeks ago, the cancer returned. Aggressive, resistant. The oncology team had exhausted options. Sheyla entered consultation room 3B for the first time since receiving Lucas's diagnosis. But this time, she didn't sit across from the Morrisons. She sat beside them. "I know saying 'I understand' never feels true," Sheyla began. "But I've sat where you're sitting. My son was diagnosed with a heart defect when he was 5 days old. He's 15 months old now, and I still don't breathe easily. So when I say I understand, I mean I've felt that specific terror of knowing your child might die. Whatever you're feeling right now is valid. You're allowed to fall apart." Jessica Morrison burst into tears. "Everyone keeps treating us like we're made of glass. Everyone tells us to stay strong. But I don't want to be strong. I want someone to acknowledge that this is the worst thing that has ever happened." "Then scream," Sheyla said gently. "Break things. Fall apart. You don't have to be strong. You just have to be present. Tyler needs your presence, not your performance of okayness." They talked for 90 minutes. Real conversation. Real connection. Sheyla shared her phone number. "Text me. 3 in the morning whenever. If you need someone who understands, I'm here." Tyler Morrison died 3 weeks later. Sheyla attended his funeral. Afterward, Jessica found her in the parking lot. "Thank you," Jessica said, "for treating us like humans, for not hiding behind professional distance. Tyler's last weeks were horrible, but they were also beautiful because we were really present with him. That was your gift to us." Over the next year, Sheyla redesigned the hospital's approach to difficult conversations. She created peer support groups, matching families experiencing medical trauma with survivors. Emma Gallagher became her co-facilitator. Rachel Pemberton started a NICU parent support group. James Kofi, whose daughter finally received a heart transplant, helped with pediatric cardiology family education. They built a community of broken people helping other broken people. And it was the most meaningful work Sheyla had ever done. Hospital satisfaction scores for difficult conversations increased by 87%, but the numbers didn't matter to Sheyla. What mattered were the faces. The mothers who texted her at 3 in the morning. The fathers who cried in support groups because they finally had permission to fall apart. Lucas underwent his 3rd surgery, the Fontan procedure, at 3 years old. Dr. Kowalski emerged after 7 hours with a smile. "This boy is a miracle. He's beaten every odd. He's going to have limitations, but he's going to live. He's going to thrive." Within a year, Lucas was attending preschool, playing with other kids, living a relatively normal life. He had a scar down his chest he called his superhero mark. He was empathetic beyond his years. He told Sheyla he wanted to be a doctor when he grew up, to help sick kids like me. On a Tuesday afternoon, Sheyla sat alone in consultation room 3B after a difficult meeting. The tissue box sat on the table. The comfortable chairs waited for the next family who would need them. She pulled out her phone and looked at her screensaver. Lucas at 4 years old, grinning at the camera, his superhero scar visible, his eyes full of life. For 12 years, she thought compassion made her weak. She thought distance made her strong. But strength wasn't the absence of pain. Strength was feeling everything and still showing up. Strength was being broken open and choosing transformation. They didn't call her the Ice Queen anymore. Now they called her when they needed someone who truly understood. Someone who had walked through the valley of shadows and emerged changed. Lucas almost died, and it broke Sheyla into a million pieces. But in putting herself back together, she found the parts of herself she had lost. The soft parts, the vulnerable parts, the human parts. She wouldn't wish this pain on anyone, but she wouldn't trade who it made her become. She wouldn't trade the depth of love she discovered, the connections she built, the families she helped navigate their own valleys. Every family she met, she thought, "You're not alone. I've been where you are. I know the specific terror of loving someone so much that their suffering becomes your suffering. And I'm here to tell you that you can survive this. Not unchanged, not unbroken, but you can survive it." Emma's blue blanket still draped over Lucas's bed at home. Every stitch a prayer. Every prayer answered. not with a miracle cure or an easy road, but answered with survival, with transformation, with the kind of love that only grows in the soil of suffering. It took becoming a mother to teach Sheyla how to be human. It took almost losing her son to find her purpose. Now she understood what she had been put on this earth to do. Not to deliver death sentences with clinical efficiency, but to sit beside people in their darkest hours and remind them what it means to be human, to feel everything, to break open, to transform. The Ice Queen was dead. In her place was someone softer, braver, more real, someone who cried with families instead of for them, someone who understood that the worst moments of our lives don't just break us, they can break us open. And what grows in that broken open space is more beautiful than anything we could have planned. If you found hope in Sheyla's story, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about your own journey through impossible circumstances. And remember, you're stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and you're never alone in the darkness. Do you believe in mercy? I'd love to read your story.